Attention boys and girls of the internet. As a lifelong gamer, part-time complainer of metas and certified judger of gameplay that is 15 ranks higher than my peak, today I would like to seek an answer to one important question. Can you still enjoy League of Legends as an ADC? But I need to clarify before the low IQ typers flock to my comments in alarming numbers advertising their own inability to watch a video before posting a bad take. First, this video will not talk about if ADCs are good. We know they are, and they are arguably the most impactful role in the game, for pro play. They also snowball harder than anything a full-grown Nunu could ever wet dream of, so in no way, shape or form is this an analysis of their power. As we all know, a properly fed ADC can right-click shaft an entire generation of cocoa melon breed babies. But instead I want to take a look at the average experience queuing up by yourself in a typical elo of silver in modern-day League of Legends to try and answer the question of, is the role worth playing if you want to consistently impact games and have fun? So please subscribe for more Rift research and let's get into it. And our first test sample is from my final game of last season. The start of this story begins with me roaming far away from where I should be at the start of the game, because in low elo solo queue everyone is more insubordinate than someone who says no at P. Diddy's house. So you see these full team migrations like a flock of morons heading to one area of the map instead of being where they should be, in lane, ready to start their AFK farming simulator of pocket-sized NPCs. But as you can see here, this coin flip situation that 70% of my game starts in ends up being beneficial for me, who in game 1 is playing the Pink Floyd anorexic gun collector. We get to lane and the other team doesn't have a standard marksman, because in recent times we are becoming an endangered species in this dark smelly pit of ranked solo queue, but I end up being the beneficiary of having the less AFK support in our first encounter, which means the champion that looks like someone put a costume on a walking scrotum ends up getting lit on fire, right-clicked and ultimately cucked, which gives me a baby dose of dopamine off the bat. I cash out my first 2 Hitman paychecks on a Zeal because quite frankly I don't know what the shit I should be buying in the first game of a major update, and the only thing me and my team know about the concept of tempo is that we don't have it when a ride through Bard's Fuckboy Express reveals they were taking a free objective without our knowledge. The Scarecrow is about as useful as a condom machine in the Vatican, and to be honest this Nautilus wasn't going to have a successful voyage to the Titanic either, but I show up sweating my wet dick off to space properly, using my rockets because I don't have the skill to do it from minigun range, but I play it well enough to snort some booger sugar to catch up to the bomb rat. But the second he started looking like Niagara Falls asshole, I, unlike my support, knew we should GTFO and call it a win. But of course the 3 health 4 IQ Ocean Gate dumbass fights, and I make the mistake of trying to be a good wingman, which paired with the fact that my mid laner apparently doesn't have legs, and I get to be the next recipient of a gangbang. And I know some people will say I should have been selfish there and backed away when I saw the Shen ult, but considering after that one bad outcome our support was flaming our mid laner and our jungler was saying the game was over, me bailing there would have done more mental harm than good. For example, 1 minute later when my wave was crashing and they were off by our red buff off picking lint out of each other's belly buttons, I made the selfish move to take my farm before rotating, but that resulted in more pings and flame even though I knew Dragon wasn't going to be at stake, and I made the right play. But in reality in solo queue it's the wrong play, because get ready for the mental boom it's about to cause. You have to keep in mind when you queue solo you need to work on improving your own gameplay while knowing that sometimes you have to commit to the wrong plays to keep the babies you are sitting for from tilting. So a minute later when I know that our jungler is top side, their Shen has ult again, we don't know where their jungler or mid are, and my support is over here whipping his dick out in front of their bot lane asking for a tug on pinging him off, but he insists, so I have to commit. We ended up winning the fight, but for all the reasons I stated before it was the wrong call. And just to double down on this, as we push the wave and after the win still with no vision of their jungler, it should have been clear we should back, but Tin Tits decides let's engage under tower on the team that just returned to lane, only to tiltedly say okay in chat when I opted to not entertain his dumbassery this time. Meanwhile we have bigger problems. AKA my top and jungler are having a who's shittier competition, and it's a close race while my support is flaming my mid in a way that avoids the only way you can get banned in this game anymore, by saying no words in chat. We get a visit from the clown who is making my support frown, and I'm thinking this is freer than a piece of cheese on a toothpick at a grocery store when he decides mid-fight to go back to his antisocial shrubs while Frank the Tank goes balls to the walls, so I make the wrong play of following again, expecting him to not just eat nothing while I tank the tower but instead of just flaming everyone, which is the theme. I'm committed to realizing my mistakes and improving so I can perform well and enjoy the game as an ADC.
Enemy is godlike.
Thankfully their jungler is trolling, so Tiki Hut Berry Bonds finds his life reliant on dodging the hot potato that I shoot at him, to which he fails and I rebound a bit off my last misplay. My mid laner has broken his silence on the matter, glad to see he looks like a nice guy to hang out with at parties, while the rusty soup can of a support I have is continuing to engage 60 feet in front of the wave with no vision, only to act surprised when his timing was unlucky, so he gets some time back to type up more messages in chat while I try to prove that I am good enough to climb by kiting and ultimately killing their jungler. This leaves their Ziggs one kitten's queef away from dying, and seeing as my fiddle is in the area, the plan should be to shove in and then wait for the full health jungler to just walk in and push a single button. But he must have tabbed out to skip the current song or something, as he waits until it's no longer a good time to do it while failing to get the job done himself, so I finish it off and clench my ass cheeks so hard together that I swear I grew a new glute muscle by the end of the chase. And at this point I'm thinking it's a tough game, but overall I think I'm playing it above the silver elo I'm stuck in. But then I make the mistake of failing to realize that my support is sitting in Fountain so that he can participate in the debate over who's more of a useless bitch, and I own that I messed up by being under my tower on this one. But hey, Nautilus is doing good though, according to himself. Thankfully, in the midst of your standard everyday solo queue game, their Trundle is just a beacon of light, shining straight through his transparent head in a way that I can plan to bump into him once more on his way back to base and give him a quicker way to get there. I also have hope knowing their Bard is denser than a sack of shit, and that dynamic duo on the other team is working overtime to give me the best possible chance of carrying my own dead weight over here. And by dead weight I'm saying that same Bard is able to 1v1 my mid laner who minutes before was saying that everyone else on my team was the retard. My position and my KDA are both mid, but I'm trying my ass off to take objectives and use the small highs I get from them falling to take down more enemies while dishing out compliments when I can to keep Tilted Tommy from going off the deep end. But I know that I am going to be the focused target of everyone and their extended families, and I will have less peel than mashed potato, so I'm on the super defensive, trying to position good enough to stand out from a low silver ADC and survive enough to eventually take down the windshooters who were so eager to pop my asshole before. At this point I was well farmed and trying to stick around the safety of my team so that if I ran into the Rift Teletubby or anyone else I could confidently fight and dodge the trophy zone and, in my opinion, play the fights correctly. But the problem arose in the fact that we were getting circumcised everywhere on the Rift, and rather than, I don't know, defending the base from the super minions, my buffoons of teammates would opt into chasing for a kill until they would inevitably die themselves. This would leave just me, seemingly the only person who understands the purpose of this game is to defend your nexus to be alive. But the issue with being a non-smurf trying to climb in the ADC role is that being fed at this point in the game doesn't matter if you are alone, because any slight misposition will be abused even if the abusers also misplay and you can't survive. I opt into staying only with my team as that's where I shine, but then you get hit and you get a second to think about the game you've played, doubting yourself and your skill, regretting the small mistakes you've made, feeling like you haven't made any progress. You are shit at this game and this is why you're hard stuck. And with that, my last game of the season resulted in a dopamine-less demotion. But with new seasons come new opportunities to enjoy the game, so with that I was into my first one of the new split. This one we celebrated our first official birthday in lane before our opponents due to a slightly expedited genocide of hoodlums than them, which in my book means to right-click the enemy until they are either under tower or back in base, and that is exactly what we did. It got to the point where just the hot blonde was within my reach, but I don't discriminate, so I chucked some purple drank at her and flashed for first blood before having to leave so that small troll doll didn't lick me. The theme of our bot lane was for everyone to get as low as they could in health and then kind of just edge each other by staying in lane, which was going great until my support cherry bombed the blonde and I thin-dicked her as a follow-up before coming in to plop a camera in the weeds to catch me tossing a graffiti can at her for the kill. Things were off to a good start. Sure, we were more overextended than a dislocated elbow and my floating generator did pay the price, but I felt like I appropriately spaced the fight and lent a purple line at an optimal time to contribute while making sure I sidestepped any long-range licks from unwelcome visitors. At one point Professor Akali came down to clickbait the busty buccaneer into going back to base, but my support felt guilty about the deception and gave her some cash for the road. But aside from that small hiccup, we were practically synchronized swimmers with how in sync our menstrual cycles were, and with each homicide I was getting closer to saying that I was enjoying this ADC gameplay. But then in a land far far away my Akali decided to drop by top while also asking her what's up, ignoring the fact that she left the douchebag from Demacia in her lane alone only to blame our jungler for not rotating to cover it instead. That was enough to tilt my jungler and leave my mid laner saying that this game was over instead of working together to get the objectives that I could only spectate being stolen from afar. I've taken a vow to not flame in chat as it's cowardly and yields zero benefits to helping me win my games, and I would rather just write entire essays after the game in a video hiding behind a text-to-speech voice instead, because that is the more brave route. But I do want to note that my focus remained on diffing the bot lane, as I was seeing this game going to require a hard carry if we were to win. Dumb fights in shitty corridors are bound to break out, but I have been super committed to improving my positioning by staying in the back and not overextending, which worked in killing off the midget mummy. And then when tilted Akali went dashing into danger, I was sure to zoom out and fire a few long boys her way before popping a bitch bubble and flicking a rift clit to survive myself. But apparently my contributions there were in error, as their top laner was knocking at our base, and that was my responsibility, which was resulting in the giga-feeding Tarzan slut-proclaiming team diff when I egotistically felt like I was performing beyond my assigned rank in this one. At one point we did group up to stop the split push, but that Pluto slab of granite was not in the mood to die today, and after devoting a ton of time and resources into merely tickling him, I was thinking let's just back off, but the flawless mid laner figured at this point his backup should be arriving, so what a perfect time to just dash the fuck in there, die like a dipshit, and then immediately take to chat to blame everyone else as I tried my darnest to salvage the absolute stupidity that was going on around me, as she proclaimed so elegantly that someone needs to match the split push pressure coming from the person she herself laned against. She was continuing to flame from black and white, and I was continuing to play 3 football fields back, knowing that the second I step up I would be receiving a Malphite nose tackle to the face, but the long-range gameplay was working and I was feeling like as a silver player I was performing my role in these fights correctly. But then when I did do what Akali said and matched the split push, she died again. They got Drake, and she I guess went for the title of being a walking contradiction of her previous self. She was continuing to get bored, certifiably bullied by her lane mate, but I was trying my best to step in and stop it where I could, hoping to untilt her a tad and actually win a game. But the reality was, as an ADC it's not my role to keep those around me alive, and if it was, I was failing miserably at it. The remaining players on my team were like a conveyor belt at the make-a-fed misfortune factory, and despite playing a second game at a level that I honestly feel like is better than most ADCs at this rank, I showed that in solo queue at this elo, it's hard to have an impact, and thus it's hard to have fun. Let me know in the comments if you agree, if you think this is just League of Legends in general, or if you think improving at a different role would yield better results for my hard stuff. Brush your teeth tonight, Rav out.